Hello, Trent Knights. If you're watching this, you're part of my Tigers group. And here we are for the week of May 11th, and I'm going to teach you what's in your packet. So here's our learning targets for the week. I'm going to start out with writing this week, and you'll see why in just a minute. 1, I can take notes on a story using a know, learned, and question chart. You say it. I can take notes on a story using know, learned, questioned chart. I'm going to teach you what that is in just a moment. For reading, I can compare and contrast two texts on the same subject. You say it. I can compare and contrast two texts on the same subject. And math, this week we are learning more about volume and mass. I can measure liquid volume and mass. You say it. I can measure liquid volume and mass. And parents, please, if you can, send me some pictures of your students' work. I would love it if you could send me 3 things, 1 for reading, 1 for writing, and 1 for math. And you can text it, you can email it, whatever works best for you. But I would love to see what all of you are working on out there and to give you some feedback if I can. So we're going to start with a shared screen for writing. And as I get to my screen, I wanted to show you our packet this week. So there are a lot of really great learning targets here in addition to the ones that I presented to you. I'm gonna make my screen a little bigger. That was some feedback I got from another student, was to please make my video bigger when I'm sharing my screen. And if you have any information that you want to share with me to make these videos better and more useful for you, then please tell me, and I want to improve it for you. Anyways, going back here, there's a lot of really good questions to ask when you're reading any story that will make it more interesting and fun to read it when you answer these questions. So those are just some additional things you could do. Now, you are going to be working on the next 4 to 5 weeks an opinion performance task. And since there's multiple steps to this, we are going to start it this week by doing some reading and some research, which is where that note-taking skill is coming in. So you'll notice that there are 2 articles we want you to read this week. School music programs, I'm going to read to you, and then I want you to read Every Kid Should Play an Instrument on your own. But I do want you to practice taking notes on both of them. So here they have a short paragraph about apples, but what I want you to notice is that they have created one of these charts about what I was talking about. Something you already know about the subject, a fact you've learned from the article, and then questions you still have. So this kind of reminded me of something you might have seen before, which is a KWL chart, which means what I know, what I want to know, and what I've learned. And so when I took my notes, I just changed that into a chart, and I changed the titles to what I know, what I've learned, and what questions I still have. So you'll see that when I get to my note taking, but I wanted to read you to the story first so you know what I'm talking about when I'm telling you what my notes are. School music programs. Music programs are a part of education in many elementary schools. Often, there is one music teacher who teaches music to every grade. Now, I will stop here and tell you that before I read any further than just the title and maybe the first sentence in the story, I stopped and I took notes in my what do I already know about school music programs. And so I'll show you those notes when we get to the end. But when you're doing this, I want you, maybe right now, to pause the video and just jot down some ideas of what you already know about a school music program. And you could even have your parents or your caregiver write down for you what you say out loud, and they can scribe it down to make it go a little faster, because you really do have quite a bit to take notes on. So pause the video and take some notes about what you know about school music programs. All right, and now we'll keep going. So as we go, we're going to be thinking about what you have learned about the article. So as you go, I want you to think, is there something new here that I could maybe take a note about? You could jot it down while I read it, or you could wait until I get to the end. Often, there is one music teacher who teaches music to every grade. Students may have music class once a week. Schools often have bands or orchestras too. Students may also learn how to play musical instruments by taking lessons during school time. Then they perform a concert as a group for parents and teachers. Often, students and their families have a choice about whether they want to play an instrument. Some families may want their children to learn more about music. Playing music has benefits that help students in other subjects in school. So, students are encouraged to play music. Also, kids might feel strongly about wanting to learn to play a certain instrument. They might want to play the flute, for example, or even the tuba. Other times, families might want their kids to focus more on their schoolwork, or students might have a lot of activities already. Families do not want them to have too much on their plate. Also, it usually costs money to rent a musical instrument at school. Families must consider this as well. Today, school music programs are starting to disappear. Many schools have tight budgets. They have to use their money to pay for things that students need, such as food for lunch and new textbooks. Music teachers and instruments cost money for schools. Some do not think that music is as important as other parts of a student's education. The future of music programs in schools is still unknown. Only time will tell if schools continue to keep music in our schools or have it become an after-school activity. Ooh, okay, I'm going to stop the share so you can see me a little better. And I'm going to show you my chart. And I'm going to start with the no section. So like I said, I took some notes on what I already knew about music programs before I read. So I said, schools have music classes for all grades. And in our school, you know that Mr. Schmo is our great music teacher. So I was trying to kind of think of what he does in school, which is actually my third bullet point. So I'm going to read you my second one first. Sometimes older grades have classes to learn instruments before or after school. I know when I was in fourth grade, my school started offering orchestra, and I was really excited to sign up for that and learn how to play the clarinet or the flute, but I never took advantage of it. So I hope if you ever get a chance to learn an instrument that you do it. And it's not too late for me to learn. I could still do it even at my age. So the other thing I know about music programs are that music performances are so fun. Choir, concerts. I've seen all of you Trent Knights performing some music concerts at school during the assembly. So I'd like to see more of that continue. Then after I wrote all that down, I moved on to what did I learn from this article? So I aimed for finding 3 facts to write about, and I would encourage you to make that goal too. It can be more, but get at least 3 notes down about the article. So what did I learn? Students and families sometimes have a choice about what instrument is learned. That was interesting. There are some things people do not like about music: cost, too many activities. They didn't want too much on the plate. That made me feel sad because I think music is super important, and I think it's just as important as other subjects. But it surprised me when I read it that not everybody feels the way that I do. Some music programs are disappearing, and look, my word disappearing is disappearing. I must have smudged it. Whoa. So that is concerning to me that some programs are disappearing. So then that led me to some questions that I had, and I wonder what questions you might come up with. Do you think music programs are important? What can be done to keep these programs going? How old do you need to be to start learning an instrument? So that was my chart. I'll show it one more time really quickly. And you could make notes on a chart like this, or you could use a different way. In our packet, which I'll show you one more time, they have an example here with the apples, which I didn't read you that little paragraph, but they drew a circle with the word apples in it, and then they just jotted down some words that were important from the article. And you could try that too to get your ideas flowing. If you wrote school music programs, and then you took some notes about what the things were that were talked about in this article, that might be another way to take notes. So next up is reading. And now that we have read about the school music programs, we are going to compare and contrast with another article about the same topic. So comparing means that you're looking at what is the same about something, and contrast means what is different about that thing. So I found an article on my ReadWorks about musical instruments. So I'm going to read that to you, and then I'm going to show you how you could compare and contrast the similarities and differences in this story to the school music program story. The first woodwind instruments were hollow pieces of wood. By blowing a certain way into a hole on one end, people made sound. Over time, woodwind instruments became more complicated. Because they were made of wood, they became known as woodwind instruments. Today, many woodwind instruments are no longer made of wood. For example, flutes are often made of silver, gold, or platinum now. Many professional flute players play on solid silver flutes. Students often play on flutes made of silver-plated metal. The flute is a long, narrow tube. When musicians blow over the mouthpiece of the flute, the instrument makes a sound. Musicians use their fingers to cover the holes along the tube. This controls what notes the flute plays. In symphony orchestras, the woodwind sections has more kinds of instruments than any other family. The section is made up of flutes, piccolos, oboes, English horns, clarinets, saxophones, bass clarinets, I'm getting a little mixed up on my words here. Let me slow down. Bass clarinets, bassoons, and contrabassoons. All of these instruments are hollow tubes made of wood, metal, plastic, or a combination of these three materials. The piccolo, less than 13 inches long, which is about the size of a ruler, is the smallest instrument in the whole symphony orchestra. So there is the flute, which is 27 inches long, and a piccolo, which is 12.5 inches. These pictures aren't quite to scale though, because it makes them look like they're the same size, but really this is even more than half as small as a flute. So you saw me stumble over some words there, and I just want you to know that even adults, when they are reading, still have to slow down and they have to focus and read naturally. So I want you to remember that. And if you find that you're getting stuck on some words sometimes, just know that it's okay. Slow down, take a deep breath, and keep going. So now I'm going to stop sharing the screen for a moment so I can show you my compare and contrast whiteboard of these two articles. Okay, so I abbreviated the names of the articles. School music for the first one and woodwinds for the second. And the first thing that I wrote about were how they were the same, how I compare them. Both were about music, and both mentioned children playing music or orchestra class. So I noticed that even though the articles were different, they both were about the same subject and they mentioned some of the same things. So when you are thinking about the two articles, I want you to think about how they are the same and then how they are different, the contrast. I said, school music talked about music programs at risk for disappearing. So it seemed like the author might have had a different purpose for writing that piece, maybe to convince people to think about the importance of musical programs in school and why it's important that we keep them going, and maybe some factors that go into why they might be a hard thing to have because of the cost and the time it takes to invest in them. And then woodwinds, that article described the instrument. So that article, the author's purpose seemed to be much more informational. So they were talking about what the instrument looked like, how to play it, what the materials were that went into making the woodwind instruments. And I found it really interesting to read, and I think that it was very detailed. And it was detailed in a way that the school music program article was not. So that is one way you could think about comparing and contrasting two articles about the same subject. Now we're going to move on to math. And this week I have uploaded some resources for you from Go Math. Now, when you're in class, your teacher might have shown some of these videos, and what's really exciting is you can access them from home. And so if you need some help getting logged in, just let me know and I can find your login information. But if I share my screen, I can show you the video for this week, which is right here, about volumes, mass, and liquid. So we're going to watch this, and I will say that it does go a little bit slow, but just hang in there because there's some really good information, and I'm going to show you how you could use it at home. And if you like these, there are videos for every math lesson that we are doing distance learning. So here we go.
Hi there. Ellie and I have been talking about the two big rocks near my burrow. Do you see them? They sure look heavy. Ellie and I want to know the masses of the rocks. Let's find out.
So when you're watching a video like this, if it starts flashing, that means they want you to click on it.
One rock has a mass of 12 kilograms. The other rock has a mass of 19 kilograms. Ellie and I want to know the total mass of the two rocks. How can we figure it out? Maybe we can make a model to help. Let's learn about using models to solve math problems. Come on.
All right, so you might remember us talking about this unit of measurement last week, kilograms. So remember that a gram is about the size of a grape. It's pretty small. And then a kilogram is 1,000 of those, like 1,000 grapes. So let's find out what it says in the video.
Here's a problem for you to solve. How many liters can the large container hold? 22. What are you trying to find out? If Sadie will...
Okay, so I'm learning this along with you. And I'm going to read the question to you. It says, unlock the problem. A restaurant serves iced tea from a large container that can hold 22 liters. Sadie will fill the container with pitchers of the tea shown. Will Sadie have tea left over after filling the container? So when I'm reading a math question, especially a complicated story problem like this, I need to reread it again to really get that information in. So I'm going to read it again, and this time I'm going to pay attention to key words to help me solve the problem. A restaurant serves iced tea from a large container that can hold 22 liters. Whew. Okay, they said it's a large container, and that makes me think of where I've seen the word liters before. Have you ever had a bottle of pop or soda from the store? That holds 2 liters, the big one that you share with your family. That's 2 liters. So they're saying they have a container that can contain 22 liters, which is so much. So they have to break it up into smaller pitchers. It says Sadie will fill the container with the pitchers of tea shown. Will Sadie have tea left over after filling the containers? So I noticed that I need a little more information here. And if I look at the container, I see that this says 10 liters. So I'm going to keep the video going and see if they talk about this, but I wonder what you think. Let's count by tens. 10, 20, 30. So these 3 pitchers can hold 30 liters of liquid. And how many did it say that Sadie had? 22. So now we have to think if the answer to the question that they're looking for is, will Sadie have tea left over after filling the container? So I have a pretty good idea of what I think the answer is, but I'm going to keep going and let's see if it comes up with the answer that you're thinking of.
Will have tea left over after filling the container. You can use multiplication to solve the problem. We need to find out how much iced tea is in each pitcher. Let's see what volume of tea is inside one pitcher.
So there it's flashing. I'm going to click on it.
The line shows the number of liters of tea in the pitcher. The label next to the line is 8. So the pitcher holds 8 liters of tea. The other pitchers have the same amount of tea. The problem contains a number of equal groups of liters, so you can multiply. How many equal groups are there?
So I made a little mistake, which I actually love doing when I'm teaching because it gives me the opportunity to show you what to do if you make a mistake. And sometimes you learn from your mistakes. So while it was true that this container holds up to 10 liters, now that I'm taking a closer look, I do see that the liquid only comes up to the number 8 in all 3 containers. So I'm really happy that they changed it to 8 instead of 10. And this maybe makes me change my thinking about, will Sadie have tea left over after filling the container? She's got 22 liters. So now instead of counting by tens, I need to count by eights, which is a little more challenging to do. You could use multiplication. So let's see what they say. If you've been learning your multiplication facts, Let's see if you know what they would write for that. Here we go.
There are 3 equal groups. How many liters are in each group?
So 1, 2, 3 pitchers.
There are 8 liters in each group. How can you write the multiplication sentence?
So what do you think is going to go here? I'm going to guess it's 3. And then what would we write right there if we're using multiplication? Would we put a plus sign or a times sign? Multiplication. Let's find out what they say.
3 times.
So they did use times.
8 is equal to.
Okay, now, if you haven't remembered about how to do multiplication, that's okay, because if you remember, we were talking about how multiplication is the same thing as repeated addition, adding something over and over. So I want you to pause the video and I want you to try adding 8 plus 8 plus 8 and see what you come up with. Or if you know your multiplication facts, I want you to try skip counting by 8 3 times and see if you come up with that number. Pause it. Okay, and here's the answer.
24. Is 24 liters greater than or less than 22 liters?
I remember learning about this. We spent a long time talking about greater than and less than. And do you remember us talking about the number line and putting numbers in order, the lower number before the bigger number? Now, if I'm comparing these two numbers, remember our alligator chompy, you can draw that little line. It's like a sideways triangle. And the alligator is always trying to chomp the bigger number. So I would have to say that 24 liters is greater than 22 liters because it is bigger. I'd be drawing my chompy like that. And let's see if I'm right.
It's greater than 22 liters. Will Sadie have tea left over?
So, on a complicated question like this, it's easy to forget what were they asking you in the first place. You did all this work to figure out how much liquid was there, and now you have to figure out, does she have any tea left over after filling the container? So I want you to think about it. There's 24 liters here. Will she have tea left over or will she not? Pause and think. Okay, are you ready?
Yes, Sadie has more tea than can fit in the container. She will have tea left over.
Did you get it? Because 24 was bigger than 22. She had a little bit left over. Do you know how much she had left over? 2 liters, just like that big bottle of pop we were talking about. Okay, now this is blinking, so it wants me to go on. I'm going to turn the page.
Take a moment to read this problem.
It says Raoul's fish tank contains...
You can use a bar model to solve this problem. The bucket holds 4 liters of...
I told you the videos go slow. It says Raoul's fish tank contains 36 liters of water. He empties it with a bucket that holds 4 liters of water. How many times will Raoul have to fill the bucket?
Here's a problem about mass. Take a moment to read this problem. You can use a bar model to solve this problem. The bucket holds 4 liters of water, so start with a bar that shows 4 liters. Raoul is emptying the tank using the bucket. When he fills the bucket 2 times, he will have taken 8 liters of water from the tank. The question asks for the number of times Raul fills the bucket. We don't know the exact number of bars to use in the diagram. We can show this by leaving the center of the diagram blank. The fish tank contains 36 liters of water, so the total length of the bar diagram represents 36 liters. To find out how many equal groups of 4 equal 36, you need to divide.
Okay, so they're wondering how many groups of 4 are in 36.
36 divided by 4 is equal to 9. So Raul will have to fill the bucket 9 times.
And even if we didn't quite get to talking about division very much in our class, you can still think about how multiplication, which is the opposite of division, is repeated addition. So you could think about what you know about that to help you solve this problem. So you could have started by, instead of making this little graph, you could have added 4 over and over until you arrived at the number 36. And then you could have gone back and counted your 4s, and you would have seen that you had 9 4s, which is the amount of times he had to fill up the bucket 9 times. Now I'm thinking about the original question in this problem, and it was with the rocks, and it was about how do you find out how much the rocks weigh together. So I'm going to hit this home button and see if it'll do what I want it to do.
How can you use models to solve liquid volume and mass problems?
I don't think I can get this to do this, so thanks for bearing with me. I remember that the values were 12 kilograms and 19 kilograms. And if you add those two numbers together, then they will tell you how much those 2 rocks weigh. And you would just have to make sure to write the label of kilograms so you know how much, what you're measuring, if it's grams, kilograms, or something else. So I'm going to stop sharing my video just for a second. Okay, I'm back. Thanks for hanging in there with me. So if I go back to sharing my screen, the next problem on that little video actually relates a little bit better to what is being shown in the packet. So this one says, Ed's delivery service delivered 3 packages to Miss Wilson. The packages have masses of 16 kilograms, 10 kilograms, and 12 kilograms. What is the total mass of the 3 packages? So like I was just talking about, you can use addition to help you solve a problem like this. So they're suggesting that you put them all up on the bar, and then you're going to be adding them together and making sure to write that label of kilograms to show how much they weigh together. The key word is what is the total. When you see the word total, that usually means to add.
That's right. This is one way to label the bar model. You can actually place the labels in any of the boxes because the length of the boxes don't have to exactly match the mass.
So I'm going to pause them, but if you go on this video, I'll let you explore it a little more. But if we were going to add these numbers up, we could say 16 plus 10 is 26, and then plus another group of 10 would be 36. Adding 2 more on would be 37, 38. So the answer will be 38 kilograms. There's another function on here, which is the personal math trainer. And this screen, for some reason, won't load when I am doing Zoom. But when you're doing it at home, it's great because it has some story problems just like that were presented in the video. And you can work on them, and it shows if your answer is correct or not. And there's tools and some assignments and tests on there too. So if you can do this at home, I think it will help you a lot. Now, if you can't do that at home, that is okay. You can still use your packet to find all of these concepts. So if I get into a different tab here, and I scroll down to where the math is, I see page 14, which is solving problems about liquid volume and mass. And so you'll see there another question that's going to ask you to find what is the total liquid volume of both watering cans. So I want you to take what we were just talking about and see if you can work through this problem using addition, using your label. See, they use a big L to show the measurement liters. And they have 2 more problems for you to solve regarding the liquid volume and mass. So if you do this page, I'd love it if you would take a picture of it and send it to me. And I want to just tell you that we have reached the end of our session, and I appreciate your patience as we work through those math videos together. I think that they're a great resource, and I hope you enjoy it. I miss you, and I will see you next week. Bye.